Hello, parents, educators, and nerdy D&D fans. You have found our new home for Area of Effect, a talk show where we discuss how tabletop role-playing games benefit the whole family. We're currently in process of shifting all our old but golden episodes over to this new channel by posting a new episode every weekday until we catch back up to our new episodes. We would love your help getting this new channel up and running with a follow, share, or review. And thanks for joining us on our quest to bring more adventurers to the table.
Hi there, I'm Hugh from Poderation. If you like today's show, why not check out Dungeons and Dragonfruits, the bizarre, strange, and queer in every sense of the word D&D podcast. Join 5 friends as they laugh, learn, and adventure their way through the weird, wonderful world of Widdershins, where dragons hatch from trees and have adventures of all forms in every shape and size. Available wherever you can get your podcasts.
My first year teaching, we were with second graders teaching them how to code, and we were practicing using each other as the pretend robots. So they had different groups where one person had to be the person holding the directions. They had to give the direction to the person giving the commands, and they had to give the direction to the robot. Each kid had a different piece of the puzzle that only they had. They were trying to interpret in a language they didn't even know to each other, and they had a blast doing it, even if they were struggling so much to complete the task. They were engaged and they were looking to each other to get different information. I'm Kimberly.
And I'm Allison.
And I'm Ryan, and welcome to Area of Effect, a podcast by the Kids Table, where we discuss how tabletop RPGs benefit kids and answer your questions about playing TTRPGs with the kids at your table. We're so glad that Kimberly is back with us again this week. Kimberly, veteran teacher, part of Allison's extended family. It's so great to have you with us, Kimberly. I think my first question is, why are kids so bad at teamwork? Like, why is that so hard?
Oh man, I feel like we've touched on this before, but just at this age, they are not looking outside of themselves yet. And that's totally normal, developmentally appropriate, but it's a skill that they have to learn, and they have to practice it and have it modeled for them.
So it's not something we're all innately born with?
Because adults are so good at teamwork.
I mean, it takes 18 years of practice.
Oh yeah, that's totally it. Because, like, you know, this podcast is about the effect that we can have as parents and adults on the kids around us, and part of that is good modeling. And I feel like adults aren't always sometimes the best modelers of teamwork, especially with kids, right? Like, we kind of get, you know, we get real directive. We get real, you know, I'm big and I know what I'm doing, and you're little and you don't know what you're doing. So, like, talk to us a little bit about that too, right? Kids are egocentric. We can't get away from that. But what's good modeling of teamwork versus bad modeling of teamwork?
A big thing I see is that, and even myself is hard to hold back from as the adult, is to want to jump in to just make it move along a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
There is a time where that does have to happen. But for the most part, kids need a couple seconds or time to interpret and figure it themselves out on their own, because their brains are like, those neurons are firing, they're building those pathways. And the more they can do that on their own, the stronger that connection is going to be in their brain, and they're going to be able to replicate it next time. So with even something like teamwork, that's going to be something they're going to learn to trust by practice, that somebody else is capable of something, or somebody else has a different skill that they don't have. That's something that, like in the coding practice or in something like D&D, they do a really good job of very clearly defining, like, I have this and you have this, and that's good. I need to trust that if you have thieves' tools, you should be the one who can lockpick the door. But if I have high charisma, I should be the person to talk to them. And we kind of have different roles, and that's what we're good at. And that's something to be celebrated. in working together?
Okay, so two things. One thing, this is so interesting. I've never thought about learning to be a teammate requiring a ton of patience in a similar way to parenting children. Because, for instance, I'm teaching my daughter to load the dishwasher right now, and it is so hard to like stand there and let her do it wrong because of course I know the most efficient way to load the dishwasher, right? And like try to fit the bowl this way and try to fit the bowl that way, and it's taking me so much longer. It would be so much easier if I just loaded the dishes, but it's like the good quote unquote in the short term for me is like to do it quickly, but the good overall in the long term is to take your time, to let her figure it out, to let her go through the process of like failing and trying again. And in a similar way, teamwork, learning the skill of teamwork takes a lot more time than learning to load the dishwasher, right? And can be even more aggravating. But I think that the really cool thing about the exercise that you took your students through is that everybody had their own unique skill set and their special job. And that does remind me of D&D a lot, how different characters specialize and have different skills and strengths in certain areas. So, you know, if it's time for the group for somebody needs to stealth through somewhere, it makes a lot more sense for the rogue to do it than the paladin with their like heavy armor that's going to give them disadvantage on the stealth roll. So that's in a way a lot neater and easier way to learn teamwork than in real life when just looking at a person, you don't necessarily know what their special skills are.
Yes, exactly that. Because, you know, kids are very concrete thinkers typically. We talked about different intelligences, but for the most part, you start kids out with concrete, and those are jobs that have very outlined roles. Whereas in life, and especially I think this is a problem with parenting too, it's so easy to jump in because you think, I have all these skills, I can do this. But the point is that you're teaching the child to gain those skills. And it's a lot harder to see those in other people, and especially in kids, seeing those skills in other kids is really hard. If you ever ask a kid, you know, why do you like that person? Why are they your friend? It's really hard for them to say, well, they're kind, they're very compassionate, they just know that we play together.
Yeah.
But it helps them in role-playing situations to see something very concrete that someone else can do something.
Yeah,
or
it's
you
like
can
written down on the paper that you can point to how we can rely each other.
So that's really interesting for me going through the kids table right now, where we are in the season so far. One of the things that I've been noticing is how eager Beckett and Chloe, who, you know, were 6 at the time that we recorded that, how eager they are to do everything, right? There's no malice. Like, there's no, like, I think I can do this better. It's just simply the joy of rolling dice. So, like, anytime I say to anybody at the table, why don't you make, like, an intelligence check or make a history check for me? Both of them will jump in and say, I want to do that too, and will immediately start rolling. It's a fine line to walk, right? Because I as a DM am trying not to squash the creativity, as we've talked about before.
Yeah.
And right.
Good
And
job.
like, and thank you. And give them that space to explore and to do what they want. And also, there are a couple of times when I have to more sort of firmly say, nope, not right now, Beckett. This is a role for Rosalie. Rosalie's the one that's standing next to the map. She's the one that gets to try and figure this one out. And so there's this like fine line you got to walk, right? Where you're right that around the D&D table, characters have different roles, but they all have the same sheet. They all have the same character sheet, and they all have the same skills technically. And so it's also helping them to understand like when to give ground and when to let somebody else take the lead, and also when to advocate for your own skills and to sort of step up and take the lead. It's a fine line that you've got to walk as the DM in that situation.
Yeah, I see it as like excellent practice for like at a school level, maybe group projects, all of our favorite thing, and like
sure.
At an adult level, like when you're working with your coworkers on a shared project together, right? Like it's hugely important to develop those skills of knowing when to lead and when to follow,
how to listen to everybody sharing ideas at how to approach the problem and weighing the pros and cons together, and not being so attached to your own idea that you can't acknowledge when somebody else has a superior idea for this particular situation, or when somebody else is better suited for this role, even if you want to do that piece of the project.
As we get deeper into the different topics, they're so intertwined, and you can't just pull one out and say you if you respond this way, it'll do well for teaching them teamwork. But it's already tied into building their independence and building their creativity, that you kind of have to weigh, at different times when to focus on each one.
And it's hard because there's so much going on around the TTRPG table anyway, right? As a DM, you are, or as an adult who's sitting there with the kids, you are trying to manage like the rule set, you're trying to follow the story, and then you're trying to attend to these kids and their emotions and the values that we're trying to teach them, the virtues that are sort of undergirding the whole process. As a teacher, Kimberly, does that feel daunting for you? What encouragement would you give to adults around the TTRPG table from your time as a teacher, right? Knowing that this is a difficult thing to do with kids, like what encouragements would you give to us as we're trying to do this ourselves?
One of the encouragements we give to parents is we say, pick one thing to focus on at a time. Don't throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. It's, if you want to work on multiple things, pick one of them and say, okay, I'm gonna encourage teamwork right now. And so the different things you are putting forth to the kids, the wording that you're using and the phrases, you are building the scaffolding for teamwork. And that's not that you're not focusing on the other things, you might be, but what the front is you are giving to the kids is focusing on that one. And then once you feel like they've got that down, then you can start building another one into it.
That's really helpful, Kimberly. Yeah, for sure. Especially when we think about like what you just said about how so many of these topics are intertwined. There's a piece of that can feel real daunting, right? That like, all of this social emotional stuff sort of goes together. And so what do I start with? Or what's the best foot to put forward? Or like, what is the one thing that I can teach my kid that everything else will revolve around? And instead, what I hear you saying and what I find encouraging from that is that no matter what you pick, it all sort of fits together in the end. So any one of these skills that you are scaffolding for kids will eventually help scaffold the rest of them. So there's almost an element of like trusting your instincts, right? Like what you see at the table happening in this moment is the thing to focus on.
Yeah. If you think of it like teaching spelling, if your kid wants to learn how to spell superfluous, they're probably going to get letters wrong. You tell them to sound it out, they get letters wrong. And let's say they're reversing some letters and they write their S backwards. Maybe you want to focus on helping them writing their S the right way. And it's okay if they spell it wrong because you can teach them how to spell it in the future. So you're just focusing on one aspect
rather
of it
than
at a time.
Correcting them in multiple different ways that might feel discouraging to them to have them layered on top all at once.
Yeah. D&D gives each person a piece of the puzzle, and that's why D&D motivates good teamwork.
Thanks for listening to Area of Effect. Be a part of the ongoing conversation. Follow us on Instagram at the Kids Table D&D, where you can DM us questions that might appear on a future show. And check out the Kids Table D&D on YouTube to see how we include kids and teens at the table. Brought to you by the Kids Table, because when kids are at the table, everyone wins.